The idea of something like smart beta is, I choose my words carefully here, baloney. The rest of the market cannot all be smart beta. Smart beta and dumb beta have to offset one another. Otherwise, everybody is above average.
Right.
And again, we don't have Lake Wobegon on here where all the students are above average. So
Except for my students.
I ask people, what is the intellectual basis for indexing? Gross return minus cost equals net return. So if you can capture the market return at minimal cost, you will win. What, I then ask, is the intellectual basis for active management? The only response I've ever gotten to that is, I can do better. Well, that's not an intellectual response. You get 100 managers, probably 100 of them tell you they can do better. They're not going to sell very much if you say, our big thing here in this firm is we can do worse. It's a big marketing thing, and it cannot be true. I understand the fundamental index thing. I fully understand that if you look at the crisp University of Chicago data, that over going back to 1926 or thereabouts, that value has done better than growth, and that small cap has done better than large cap. But when you look at that on a cumulative return basis, you can find periods, this is point one really on this, you can find periods as long as 20 years when the reverse is true. So history doesn't tell you everything. The past is not necessarily prologue, and often the past is anti-prologue. So that's point number one. Point number two, which is related to that, is let's assume that everybody figures out what you've just told me. Growth, you invest everything in value and small cap, or maybe a combination of both. If a substantial portion of the market does that, those stocks will be bid up, and growth stocks and large stocks will be bid down, and it will all be arbitraged away, because the stock markets are a magnificent arbitrage medium between the past and the future. So what's existed in the past doesn't impress me all that much. Point three is we have actually done this same kind of analysis about growth versus value by looking at the mutual fund industry all the way back to 1933. I think it was 33. And back in those years, there were about 3 firms that had a clearly distinct difference between the two. Growth fund and a value fund, or an income fund, they would call it that, or equity income fund. And that doesn't show what the University of Chicago CRISP data shows. It shows they're about even. And so you have to ask yourself, is the test this kind of theoretical index whose construction could be challenged at almost every level? Any construction can be.
Sure.
I don't think it has any more weaknesses than any others. And I'm not sure anybody fully understands how it's constructed and what happens to stock that goes out of business and all those things. I mean, I'm sure they try and deal with it, and I'm sure they try and deal with it accurately and honestly and with integrity. But that doesn't mean that it's right, that it gives you the right answer. And it's to some degree, at least, belied by the actual returns of growth versus value in the fund industry. So it then becomes a question which data are more value, or more valuable, or more valid. Thank you. And so just be cautious